The silver research vessel hung motionless above Earth's atmosphere, its smooth surface reflecting the blue planet below. Inside, lead researcher Gray stared at his display screen with all four of his eyes blinking in confusion. "Most puzzling," he muttered, adjusting the sensitivity of his observation equipment. "These humans seem to waste 1/3 of their lives in a state of unconsciousness." His assistant, researcher Blue, floated closer to examine the readings. "Indeed, they call it sleep. How terribly inefficient." The two alien researchers had been watching Earth for the past 3 rotation cycles, and everything they saw challenged their understanding of what made a species advanced. Their own race had evolved beyond the need for sleep thousands of years ago, their bodies continuously active and productive. "Look at this," Gray pointed at a new set of readings. "They require constant fuel intake, not just once per rotation, but multiple times, and they seem to gather in groups to perform this function." The screen showed a family sitting around what humans called a dinner table. The aliens watched as the humans talked, laughed, and took far longer than necessary to consume their nutrients. "Highly inefficient," Blue agreed, making notes in his datapad. "They could simply inject their required nutrients and continue their work cycles. Instead, they waste precious time on this social consumption ritual." Gray zoomed in on a city center where humans moved about their daily activities. Their environmental adaptability is remarkably poor as well. "Look how they must constantly adjust their external temperature with artificial coverings." The screen showed people wearing coats in the cold morning air, later removing them as the day warmed up. To the aliens, whose bodies automatically regulated temperature, this seemed like yet another sign of primitive design. "Should we even bother making contact?" Blue wondered aloud. "They seem rather primitive." Just then, something caught Gray's attention. A group of humans had gathered in what appeared to be a park. Some were running in circles on designated paths, others were sitting on benches reading physical data tablets called books, and a few were creating colored patterns on flat surfaces with manual marking tools. "What are they doing?" Gray asked, genuinely puzzled. "There seems to be no practical purpose to any of these activities." Blue conducted a quick scan. According to their information networks, they call these recreational activities. They deliberately engage in non-productive actions for something called enjoyment. Gray's antenna twitched in disbelief. Fascinating. Their society hasn't collapsed despite such widespread inefficiency. There must be something we're missing. The researchers spent several more hours observing various human activities. They watched children playing in schoolyards, construction workers building new structures, and artists performing on street corners. Everything seemed chaotic, unplanned, and yet somehow functional. "I've made my decision," Gray announced finally. "We must make contact. The Galactic Council needs to know about this species. Their inefficiencies are so numerous that they require immediate assistance and guidance." Blue nodded in agreement. "Shall I prepare the standard first contact protocols?" "Yes, but add a note of caution. These humans are unusual. They've achieved space travel and complex technologies despite their biological limitations. We should approach with care." As the alien ship prepared its first contact procedures, neither researcher realized that what they saw as flaws were actually humanity's greatest strengths. Their inability to understand human creativity, emotional connections, and the power of rest would soon lead to one of the greatest misunderstandings in galactic history. Gray made one final entry in his log. "Discovered primitive but intriguing species on third planet of solar system. Text 1138. Species requires constant rest periods, frequent nutrient intake, and engages in numerous non-productive activities. Recommend immediate civilization assistance program. Note: exercise caution. Species has survived despite significant evolutionary disadvantages. Further study required to understand this anomaly." Little did he know that this anomaly would soon change the galaxy's understanding of what it meant to be advanced. The massive Galactic Council assessment ship descended through Earth's clouds, its silver hull gleaming in the morning sun. Inside, Chief Assessor White prepared his team for their first official meeting with human representatives. Remember, White told his team, these beings are highly inefficient. We must be patient with their limitations. He checked his data pad one final time. Our mission is to evaluate their society and determine the level of assistance they require. The meeting took place in a large conference room at the United Nations building. The human delegation, led by Ambassador Stone, waited calmly as the alien team entered. White noticed immediately that the humans had arranged chairs in a circle rather than the standard efficient grid pattern. "Welcome to Earth," Ambassador Stone said with a smile. "We've prepared a presentation about our civilization." The aliens settled into their seats, their scanning devices ready to collect data. What followed left them more confused than ever. Instead of beginning with technological achievements or resource management statistics, the humans started by showing them art. Paintings hung on walls, music played through speakers, and dancers performed traditional movements from various cultures. "I don't understand," Assistant Assessor Green whispered to White. "What is the productive output of these activities?" White's confusion grew as the presentation continued. The humans seemed proud of things that made no logical sense. They showed clips of sporting events where humans chased balls across fields. They displayed pictures of gardens where plants were arranged for visual appeal rather than maximum food production. "Excuse me," White interrupted as a violin player finished a solo performance. "What is the purpose of this noise arrangement?" Ambassador Stone looked surprised. "It's music. It feeds our souls." The alien assessment team exchanged bewildered looks. Their scanners detected no organ called a soul in human anatomy. The confusion reached new heights when the humans served lunch. Instead of efficient nutrient packets, they presented elaborate dishes with multiple ingredients combined in what they called recipes. The aliens watched in amazement as the humans spent time discussing the food's flavor and texture. "But why make it so complicated?" Green asked, watching a human spread something called butter on bread. "Wouldn't a simple protein cube be more efficient?" "Food isn't just about survival," explained Dr. Rock, a human cultural expert. "It's about enjoyment, tradition, and bringing people together." After lunch, the humans led them on a tour of a nearby city. The aliens were shocked to find buildings designed with decorative elements that served no practical purpose. They saw humans spending time in coffee shops, parks, and museums, all activities that produced no measurable output. "Look at this waste of space," White noted, gesturing to a large concert hall. "This entire structure exists solely for humans to gather and listen to organized sound patterns." "It's called music," Dr. Rock corrected gently. "And yes, we build entire buildings for it, because it brings us joy." The concept of joy had appeared in their research, but the aliens struggled to quantify its value. Their own society had eliminated such inefficient emotional responses centuries ago. At the end of the day, White sat in the assessment ship, trying to write his report. How could he explain to the council that these humans deliberately chose inefficient ways of living? They had the technology to build perfectly uniform cities, yet they filled them with parks and art galleries. They could create standardized nutrient solutions, yet they insisted on thousands of different food varieties. His final report read, "Human society operates at approximately 32.6% efficiency compared to council standards. However, they show no signs of distress at this suboptimal performance. Most concerning is their deliberate pursuit of non-productive activities they call art, music, and entertainment. Recommend immediate intervention to help them achieve proper civilization efficiency." As the assessment ship left Earth's atmosphere, White couldn't shake the feeling that he was missing something important. These humans, despite all their inefficiencies, had built a thriving civilization. But how? The answer would prove far more revolutionary than any alien could imagine. The Galactic Council Testing Center buzzed with nervous energy as Engineer Brown walked in. She was one of 5 humans chosen to face the aliens' challenge, a series of tests designed to prove humanity's worth. The testing chamber was a stark white room, filled with advanced alien technology, all of it gleaming under bright lights. Test Administrator Purple stood at the front of the room, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence as he addressed the human participants. "Your species has shown concerning levels of inefficiency," he announced. "These tests will determine if you can think properly." Brown looked at her fellow humans. A cook, a painter, a musician, and a teacher. Not exactly the group she expected for an advanced alien test, but the council had specifically requested this mix of professionals. "Your first challenge begins now," Purple announced, pressing a button on his control panel. A hologram appeared in the center of the room, showing a complex maze of energy pipes. Red warning lights flashed across the system. "This is a standard power distribution network," Purple explained. "You have 10 minutes to prevent a system overload. The correct solution requires exactly 47 steps." The humans gathered around the hologram. Brown studied the maze, her mind already racing with possibilities. But it was the cook who spoke first. "It's like managing heat in an oven," he said, pointing to a junction. "We need to release pressure in bursts, not all at once." The aliens watched in horror as the humans ignored the standard procedure. Instead of following the logical sequence, they began trying different approaches all at once. Brown rerouted power paths while the painter suggested visual patterns for better flow. "Stop," Purple called out. "You're not following the approved method." But before he could reset the test, the warning lights turned green. The humans had solved it in 12 steps instead of 47. "Impossible," Purple muttered, checking his readings. "The solution isn't in our database. We just made the pipes work together like instruments in an orchestra," the musician explained, earning blank stares from the alien observers. The next challenge involved predicting weather patterns on an alien world. The aliens expected the humans to use complex mathematical formulas. Instead, the teacher suggested looking for patterns similar to Earth's weather systems, and the painter noticed color variations in the atmosphere that indicated storm movements. They solved that one in half the expected time. Challenge after challenge appeared, each designed to test logical thinking and efficiency. But with each test, the humans found unexpected solutions that left the aliens baffled. "This is unacceptable," Purple declared after the humans solved a quantum physics problem by comparing it to a dance routine. "You're not solving these problems correctly." "But we are solving them," Brown pointed out, "just differently." The final challenge was meant to be impossible, a test the aliens used to prove a species' limitations. A holographic city appeared, facing complete destruction from multiple disasters at once: floods, fires, and power failures. "Save as much as you can," Purple instructed. "The maximum efficiency rate ever achieved is 63.2%. The humans huddled together, each bringing their unique perspective. The cook talked about balancing multiple dishes during rush hour. The painter discussed how different colors could work together. The musician compared the city's needs to arranging a complex piece of music. Brown listened to them all, combining their ideas with her engineering knowledge. Together, they developed a solution that no single approach could have created. The aliens watched in stunned silence as the humans not only saved the holographic city, but achieved an efficiency rate of 89.7%. "How?" Purple demanded. "Your methods are chaotic, unreasonable." "That's exactly why they work," Brown explained. "We don't just think in straight lines. Sometimes the best path forward isn't the most obvious one." Back in his private chamber, Purple wrote his report with trembling hands. Humans display disturbing ability to solve problems through unpredictable methods. They combine unrelated concepts to create solutions that should not work, but do. Most alarming, they appear to enjoy ignoring standard procedures. Recommendation: further study needed to understand possible threat of human creativity. What Purple didn't realize was that this was just the beginning of humanity's surprises for the galaxy. Red emergency lights flashed throughout the Galactic Council's flagship as alarms blared in every corridor. On the main bridge, Chief Commander Red stood frozen in front of the massive view screen, watching in horror as a massive solar storm approached their fleet of 50 ships. "Our shields will fail in 17 minutes," announced the ship's computer in its calm, logical voice. Standard protocols are ineffective against solar radiation of this magnitude. The aliens had never seen a storm this powerful. Their ships, for all their advanced technology, weren't designed to handle such an extreme event. The computer systems, programmed to follow strict logical procedures, couldn't adapt to the unprecedented situation. That's when Officer Black made a suggestion that would have been unthinkable just weeks ago. "We should ask the humans for help." Minutes later, Captain Hill from Earth's new space fleet appeared on their communication screen. The human listened calmly as Red explained their desperate situation. "Your ship's shields are failing," Hill asked, studying the data they sent. "And you can't move the fleet because the radiation would tear apart any ship that tries to escape." "Correct," Red replied, his antennae twitching nervously. "We have 16 minutes until shield failure. After that." He didn't need to finish the sentence. Hill was quiet for a moment, then smiled. "Have you ever played baseball?" The aliens stared at their screen in disbelief. Here they were, facing death, and the human wanted to discuss primitive sports. "Captain Hill," Red said stiffly, "this is hardly the time for—" "No, listen," Hill interrupted. "In baseball, when you're caught between bases, sometimes you need a sacrifice play. What if we use your damaged ships as shields for the others?" The aliens were shocked. Sacrificing ships went against every logical protocol in their manual, but they had no time to argue. Under Hill's direction, they began an unusual maneuver. The fleet arranged itself like a giant baseball diamond, with damaged ships on the outside, their remaining shield power redirected to protect the ships behind them. "This is madness," muttered First Officer Yellow. "We're mixing shield frequencies in ways that violate basic engineering principles." But it was working. As the first wave of the storm hit, the outer ship's shields flared and failed, but they absorbed enough energy to protect the ships behind them. "Now," Hill shouted, "while the storm's energy is spread out, move the inner ships through the gap we've created." It was like a strange dance in space. Ships moved in patterns that made no logical sense but somehow worked. They weaved between radiation waves like baseball players stealing bases. 10 ships through, called out the computer. 20, 30. The aliens watched in amazement as their fleet, which should have been destroyed according to every logical calculation, escaped the storm's fury. They lost 5 ships, all evacuated in time, but saved 45. Later, in the fleet's new temporary position of safety, Red approached Hill on the human ship. "Your solution violated 17 different space combat protocols," Red said. "It ignored basic shield mathematics. It contradicted everything we know about fleet operations." He paused, his antennae moving in what humans had learned was a sign of respect. "And it saved over 5,000 lives." Hill shrugged. "Sometimes you have to break the rules to win the game. In baseball, we call it thinking outside the box." "But there was no box involved in this operation," Red said, confused. Hill laughed. "It's just a saying. It means finding solutions beyond your usual way of thinking." Red made a note to study human sports sayings. They seemed illogical, but today had proved that illogical didn't mean wrong. In his official report to the Council, Red wrote, "Humans displayed highly irregular problem-solving methods during crisis situation. They used concepts from primitive physical games to save our fleet. Most disturbing observation, their illogical approach proved superior to our tested protocols." Additional finding: human sports may contain valuable tactical information disguised as recreational activities. Recommend immediate study of all human games, particularly this baseball. As Red filed his report, he realized that the galaxy's understanding of proper problem-solving would never be the same. The humans had changed everything, and they had done it by simply being themselves. Professor Gold stood before the Galactic Council's learning chamber, facing a room full of alien scientists. The massive chamber, usually used for logical instruction, was today being used for something entirely different, a lesson about human mistakes. "You see," Gold explained, pointing to images floating in the air, "some of humanity's greatest discoveries came from errors." The alien scientists shifted uncomfortably in their seats. In their society, mistakes were considered signs of failure. The very idea of celebrating errors seemed absurd. "Consider penicillin," Gold continued. "Dr. Fleming discovered it because he accidentally left a dirty Petri dish out before going on vacation. A mistake that saved millions of lives." Head researcher Pink raised one of his 4 hands. "But surely systematic, planned research would have found this medication eventually." Gold smiled. "Maybe, but how many other discoveries have we missed by being too perfect, too careful?" She moved to the next image. "Look at this chocolate chip cookie." The aliens stared at the hologram of Earth's famous dessert. "Another cooking error," Gold explained. "The inventor tried to make chocolate cookies by mixing in chocolate pieces, thinking they would melt completely. They didn't, and now it's one of our most popular foods." "This is most disturbing," whispered one alien to another. "They're proud of their failures." But Gold wasn't finished. She showed them invention after invention, discovery after discovery, all born from what the aliens would consider mistakes or illogical actions. "And here's the most important part," Gold said, bringing up a new image of a human brain. "Every time we make a mistake, our brains create new connections. We learn not just from success, but from failure." The alien scientists were torn between horror and fascination. Their own society had eliminated mistakes through careful programming and strict protocols. The idea that errors could be valuable challenged everything they believed. "But what about efficiency?" asked Pink. "Surely these mistakes waste time and resources." "Sometimes," Gold admitted, "but they also lead us to places we never would have found otherwise. Like how a wrong turn while driving might help you discover a beautiful new place." She showed them more examples. Car tires invented when someone accidentally overcooked rubber, the pacemaker created while trying to record heart sounds, and even the microwave oven, discovered when a chocolate bar melted in someone's pocket during radar experiments. One young alien researcher, whose scales were a bright shade of orange, raised his hand. "Yesterday," he said nervously, "I made an incorrect calculation in my experiment, but instead of deleting it, I looked at it more closely. I found something interesting." The chamber went silent. Admitting to mistakes was not something aliens did. "Excellent," Gold beamed. "That's exactly what I'm talking about. Sometimes our wrong paths lead to the right discoveries." As if to prove her point, Orange pulled up his data. His mistake had revealed a new way to improve ship shield efficiency by 23%. The same shields that had been failing during the recent solar storm crisis. The alien scientists burst into unprecedented discussion. Some were horrified at celebrating a mistake, but others were intrigued. The chamber, usually silent except for lectures, filled with debate and questions. Gold watched with satisfaction as the aliens began to understand. She had planned this reaction, or rather, she had planned to let chaos do its work. By the end of the session, 3 alien scientists had admitted to their own interesting errors. 5 others had requested permission to try experimental procedures that weren't in their standard protocols. And Orange had been promoted to lead a new research division focused on unexpected discoveries. In her report back to Earth, Gold wrote, "Major breakthrough achieved. Aliens beginning to understand the value of imperfection." One researcher actually admitted to a mistake, voluntarily. Several others showing interest in experimental methods. Most significant observation: they're starting to ask what if instead of just following protocols. Note, had to explain concept of happy accidents 12 times. They still don't quite understand how happiness and accidents can go together, but they're learning. As she finished her report, Gold noticed Orange excitedly showing his colleagues a new incorrect calculation. She smiled, knowing that the galaxy's rigid understanding of progress was about to become wonderfully, productively messy. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council had never seen anything like it before. Where once stood rows of perfectly aligned seats, now curved benches formed informal groups. The traditionally bare walls displayed colorful artwork, and soft music played in the background. Most shocking of all, aliens were smiling. Director Green couldn't believe how much had changed in just 6 months since humans had joined the galactic community. He watched as a group of young aliens practiced something they'd learned from humans called brainstorming. What if we combined the food synthesizer with an emotion scanner? Suggested a blue-scaled junior scientist. That makes no logical sense, another replied, but instead of dismissing the idea, added excitedly, "Let's try it anyway." In another corner, a respected alien artist, a profession that hadn't existed until recently, worked on a sculpture made from old spaceship parts. "It doesn't have to be perfect," she kept saying. "It just has to feel right." Not everyone was happy with these changes. The traditional Logic Party, led by Elder Silver, called an emergency meeting to address what they called the human chaos infection. "Order must be restored," Silver declared from the speaking platform. "Look what has happened to our perfect society. Yesterday I saw 2 junior officers taking a coffee break instead of working efficiently." "And were they more or less productive after their break?" asked Director Green, who had been studying human work patterns. Silver hesitated. "Well, their afternoon efficiency rates were higher, but that's not the point." The debate was interrupted by sounds of singing coming from the science division. A group of researchers had started a choir, claiming it helped them think better. Even more surprising, their research output had doubled since they started singing together. "This is exactly what I mean," Silver protested. "Scientists singing. What's next? Dancing mathematicians." As if on cue, the doors opened and Professor White entered, leading a group of students who were indeed dancing out complex equations. "It helps us understand orbital mechanics," he explained, spinning in a perfect elliptical pattern. The traditional Logic Party members watched in horror as more signs of human influence appeared throughout their society. Art galleries opened in space stations. Cooking became a hobby rather than just nutrient preparation. Some aliens even started telling jokes, badly, but they were trying. "But what about our efficiency?" Silver demanded. "Our perfect systems." Director Green pulled up the latest statistics on the main screen. Efficiency is up 47% across all sectors. Creative problem-solving has led to 126 new inventions in the past month alone. Even our spacecraft designs have improved since we started letting engineers play around with the plans. The evidence was hard to ignore. A shipping company that adopted human-style flexible schedules reported fewer accidents. A research team that took regular breaks to play games developed a revolutionary new energy system. Even the military found that officers who watched human movies came up with better tactical solutions. More aliens began experimenting with human concepts. Some started growing gardens just because they're pretty. Others wrote stories or painted pictures. A few even tried baking cookies, though the first attempts were quite explosive. The turning point came when young Silver, Elder Silver's own grandson, presented his project at the Science Academy. He had created a new type of computer by combining traditional alien logic with human intuition. The result was faster and more adaptable than anything previously built. "How did you develop this?" Elder Silver asked his grandson. "I made a mistake in the calculations," young Silver admitted proudly. "But instead of correcting it, I did what humans do. I got curious about why it happened. Then I took a walk in the garden, had some ice cream, and suddenly the solution just came to me." Elder Silver looked around the transformed Great Hall. The artwork on the walls no longer seemed chaotic but beautiful. The sound of laughter from the research department didn't feel disruptive but energizing. Even the curved benches seemed more inviting than the old straight rows. In his final speech before retiring, Elder Silver surprised everyone. "Perhaps," he said slowly, Perfection isn't what we thought it was. Perhaps it's found in the beautiful imperfections that humans have taught us to embrace. As he finished speaking, somewhere in the building, another alien told their first successful joke. The revolution wasn't just changing their society. It was changing who they were, one smile at a time. 10 years had passed since humans first joined the Galactic Council, and today was a historic moment. The massive council chamber, once a place of rigid order, now buzzed with excited conversation as delegates from 100 worlds gathered for the inauguration of the first human council president. President Brown, the same engineer who had once shocked the aliens with her unconventional problem-solving, stood at the podium. Behind her, a large window showed Earth floating in the distance, a small blue marble that had changed the galaxy in ways no one could have predicted. When we first met, Brown began, smiling at the diverse crowd. You thought we were inefficient, illogical, and primitive. Gentle laughter rippled through the chamber. You weren't entirely wrong. We humans are messy, emotional, and sometimes we take the long way around just to see what's there. In the audience, several alien children were drawing pictures instead of taking formal notes. Nobody minded anymore. Some of their artwork would later hang in the council's new gallery of young perspectives. But look at us now, Brown continued. Our differences weren't weaknesses. They were exactly what we all needed. The evidence was everywhere. The new council building itself was a perfect example. Its architecture combined alien precision with human creativity. Living gardens grew alongside quantum computers. Art studios shared space with science labs. And in the building's heart, a massive sculpture showed two hands, one human, one alien, reaching toward each other. Old Administrator Purple, who had once been horrified by human inefficiency, now ran the council's most popular program, the Cultural Exchange Initiative. Yesterday, he announced proudly, we had aliens and humans write poetry together about quantum physics. The resulting equations were surprisingly accurate. Even the council's meeting structure had changed. Formal protocols still existed, but now they included time for what humans called casual brainstorming. Important decisions were made not just with logic, but with consideration for emotions, creativity, and what humans called gut feeling. Our greatest achievement, Brown said, gesturing to a group of young aliens and humans working together, isn't in our technology or our efficiency ratings. It's in learning to combine our different ways of thinking. She pointed to recent achievements. A team of human artists and alien engineers had designed a new type of spaceship inspired by ocean waves. A human chef working with alien botanists had created plants that could grow in deep space while actually tasting good. And perhaps most importantly, a new generation was growing up seeing nothing strange about combining logic with creativity. 10 years ago, Brown continued, you studied us like we were a problem to solve. Now we solve problems together, and we do it better than either of us could alone. The chamber's main screen displayed images from across the galaxy. Alien children learning to paint while solving complex equations. Humans teaching aliens to dance while discussing interstellar navigation. Mixed teams of humans and aliens exploring new worlds, each bringing their unique perspectives to the journey. In the medical section, human intuition combined with alien precision had led to breakthroughs in treating diseases across species. In the engineering department, alien technology enhanced by human creativity had opened up new possibilities in space travel. Even in agriculture, the combination of alien efficiency and human artistry had created gardens that were both highly productive and beautiful. Today, Brown concluded, we don't just accept our differences, we celebrate them. The galaxy isn't becoming more human, and we're not becoming more alien. We're becoming something new together, something better than either of us imagined. As she finished speaking, an alien child ran up to the podium and handed her a drawing. It showed a human and an alien building a sandcastle together. While not technically accurate, it captured perfectly the spirit of the new era. This, Brown said, holding up the drawing, is our future. Not perfect, not entirely logical, but beautiful in its own way. The chamber erupted in applause, another human custom that aliens had come to enjoy. As the celebration began, no one found it strange when classical alien harmonics mixed with human jazz, or when the formal ceremony turned into what humans called a party. The galaxy had learned that the best path forward wasn't the most logical or the most creative. It was the one they found together.